Ukraine struck the training ground with the Flamingo from where Russia was launching the Oreshnik. This is not the first strike on the training ground, Kapustin Yar. During January 2026, the Ukrainian Defense Forces carried out a series of successful strikes on a complex of hangar-type buildings where pre-launch preparations for intermediate-range intercontinental ballistic missiles take place at the Kapustin Yar test site in Russia's Astrakhan region. This was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. It is officially noted that long-range precision strike weapons of indigenous Ukrainian production were used for these recent attacks, in particular the 5.5 Flamingo. This is the very latest Ukrainian missile technology, featuring an impressive range of up to 3,000 kilometers and a powerful warhead weighing 1 full ton. According to the General Staff, based on available information, some buildings on the test site sustained varying degrees of damage. One of the hangars was significantly damaged and part of the personnel was evacuated from the area. In particular, on January 17, 2026, there was an attack by Ukrainian drones on the Kapustin Yar test site, from where Russia had launched the Oreshnik missile at Ukraine. Air defense systems were operating in this area. The military portal Militani noted that the test site is used not only for launching medium-range ballistic missiles from the Oreshnik complex. A large number of various short and medium-range missiles, as well as cruise missiles from air defense system complexes, are also tested at the site. Also, in October of this year, the head of the SBU, Vasyl Malyuk, stated that the SBU, together with the GUR, destroyed for the first time. One of the 3 Russian Oreshnik complexes is located at Kapustin Yar. According to the head of the agency, it was a very successful operation and it was not publicized. Let us recall the last time Russia struck the Lviv region with the Oreshnik was on January 8, 2026. This was in response to information spread by Russian propaganda sources about an alleged attack on Putin's residence. At that time, the strike hit a critical infrastructure facility. The SBU showed fragments of the Russian Oreshnik ballistic missile. The service classified the strike as a war crime.
And we're starting right away with the most important topic. Ukrainian Flamingo missiles struck the training ground, Kapustin Yar, from where Russia launches its notorious Oreshnik at our country. Yes, this is a resounding slap from the Ukrainian armed forces personally to the war criminal Putin. And, as noted by the General Staff, some buildings on the training ground sustained varying degrees of damage. One of the hangars was significantly damaged, and part of the personnel was evacuated from the area. Here are the details.
Kapustin Yar is the place from where hundreds of missiles are launched at Ukraine. Including that very same Oreshnik is launched from there as well. But could it be that Putin's most terrifying weapon has come to an end?
Ukrainian Flamingo missiles have shattered the Kapustin Yar training ground to pieces. The very facility from which Oreshnik was launched has been turned into ruins. In
the course of January, Ukrainian Defense Forces carried out strikes on the Kapustin Yar training ground in Russia's Astrakhan region.
What's important is that the strike coincided with the negotiation process in Abu Dhabi. This development has significantly increased the agency and negotiating power of the Ukrainian delegation during negotiations. This represents a major informational, political, and military blow to the Russian Federation. Let me remind you that Oreshnik was previously used as a tool of military and political pressure not only against Ukraine. And now it turns out that Oreshnik itself is actually within the strike zone of the Ukrainian Flamingo ballistic missile.
We are talking about the training ground's infrastructure, specifically a complex of hangar-type buildings where pre-launch preparations for intercontinental ballistic missiles are carried out. That's where the main strike landed. Regardless
of the specific question of whether the missile launchers were destroyed or not, the destruction of the Oreshnik pre-launch preparation hangar is a major strategic and operational blow to the Russian Federation's positions at this particular and critical moment in the current conflict. The use of the Oreshnik specifically from the Kapustin Yar test range in the short-term historical perspective. In other words, it is now effectively within the strike zone of the Ukrainian Defense Forces, and this fundamentally changes the entire balance of power.
But what is actually important is this. Among the means of destruction was a Ukrainian-made missile which, with a certain probability, could have potentially destroyed Putin's ballistic missiles.
We can certainly expect that in the very foreseeable future, the Ukrainian side may respond adequately to the missile terror from the Russian Federation. First and foremost, this refers to striking legitimate military targets on the territory of the occupying country. These are petroleum oil refineries, energy sector industrial enterprises, and accordingly, fixed stationary targets such as Russian military defense industry facilities.
Another point is distance and depth. According to the data, the probable accuracy of the Flamingo missile is about 160 meters, and its warhead is even superior. The American Tomahawks.
It is precisely the Flamingo with a strike range of over 3,000 kilometers that, according to both Ukrainian intelligence reports and international Western partners, is now being manufactured at a significant industrial scale, up to 2 units per day. This is a weapon of retaliation. This is what the Ukrainian side will now use to deliver a powerful and fitting response to any terrorist act by the hostile aggressor nation.
But what is surprising is Russia's so-called unparalleled air defense system. Kapustin Yar is a strategic military facility. There's practically only one like it in all of Russia, and as is customary, such sites are supposed to be protected.
Russian air defense has proven itself to be completely and utterly unequipped to defend against incoming missile strikes, even when directed against such highly critical strategic military installations as the Kapustin Yar testing range. Moreover, let me emphasize again, Ukrainian ballistic missiles traveled almost the entire territory of the Russian Federation outside the range of air defense systems. And these are both reputational and military losses for the Russian Federation.
But here's the main question. What could have happened to Oreshnik after such an attack?
Apparently, the hangar has been destroyed and the ability to carry out pre-launch operations. At this moment, the Russian side does not have it. The essential infrastructure and essential facilities of the test site, and first and foremost, the critical pre-launch preparation workshops and the primary launch pads used for deployments, have apparently suffered such catastrophic and extensive structural damage that it could effectively paralyze the very use of this entire test site for a very long and indefinite period of time.
It seems Moscow is in danger. There will be more Ukrainian-made missiles. The manufacturer Flamingo has announced the completion of testing for the new FP-7 and FP-9 ballistic missiles, which can reach Moscow and St. Petersburg. And
now, an analysis of the operational situation on the blazing Pokrovsk front line. Fierce fighting continues. On the Pokrovsk front, the occupiers launched 21 assaults near the settlements of Rodinsky, Mirnohrad, Kotlina, Udakna, and Filia, as well as towards Novopodorodne, Novopavlivka, and the new Donbass. The defense forces have already repelled 15 enemy attacks.
Meanwhile, Belgorod has been plunged into darkness and cold. And for this blackout, Russians can confidently thank Putin personally. After all, it is his plan to cut off power to Ukraine that leads to retaliatory measures from the Ukrainian armed forces. And the geography of Ukrainian strikes is only expanding. More details in our report.
In this game, two can play. After Russian forces broke the so-called energy truce and launched targeted strikes against Ukraine's energy infrastructure, the defense forces have responded in kind. And once again, it was the people of Belgorod, residents of the largest border regional center, who had to bear the brunt for all Russians. This is not the first time Ukrainians have tried to plunge Belgorod into darkness. The publication Verstka, citing sources, reported that by the beginning of 2026, the capacities of both thermal power plants located in the city will have been knocked out. As a result, all the electricity used by the residents of the regional center comes from neighboring regions, Kursk and Voronezh regions, where nuclear power plants are in operation.
We're talking about 6 high-voltage lines from the Kursk region and 5 from the Voronezh region. These lines are another important vulnerability in the region's power system. What could happen if they are seriously damaged was demonstrated at the end of January in the Murmansk region. There, due to the collapse of 5 pylons, the main power line left people without electricity, hot water and heating, even without any shelling. As a result, tens of thousands of residents of Murmansk and the main base of Russia's Northern Fleet, Severomorsk, were affected from the Ukrainian side. The situation was only stabilized there through emergency measures in 3 days.
Unlike Ukrainians, Russians do not disclose how serious the damage to the networks is, nor do they talk about the progress of restoration work on the facilities. So far, people in Belgorod have managed to get by, and the biggest inconvenience they've experienced is several hours of power outages. However, the same sources from Verska insisted that if temperatures drop below zero and shelling continues, the situation will get worse.
While something can still be done about electricity through restrictions, such maneuvers won't work with heating. Even now, Belgorod's heating facilities are operating at about 50% capacity in some places. If the scale of the damage increases, it may become a question of preserving the heating system as such. In practice, this means that systems are partially shut down, draining the liquid from the heating pipes and then subsequently restarting them later on. Under normal conditions, this process takes more than a month to complete. Otherwise, without heating the liquid and given the cold, the infrastructure will soon be damaged beyond repair, leaving nothing left to save.
After the latest strike, local media published reports of city neighborhoods that were partially left without power. Some residents were left without water and heating. Governor Gladkov reports that everything is under control and these are just temporary difficulties.
He personally heard detailed reports from the heads of the various border municipalities, including the Prokhorovsky, Evnyansky and Roketnyansky districts, as well as the Yakovlevsky urban district, regarding the specific extent and the precise order in which the electricity and heating supply were currently being restored to the residents. How did our schools start working in remote format? Is anyone attending in person? What problems are there in the social sphere, in the management system? Are there any minor comments? But we had quite extensive preparations, so overall, during this extremely difficult period, with sub-zero temperatures and severe frosts, and considering the significant damage to our energy infrastructure, everyone is at their workplaces and doing their utmost to resolve the situation in the shortest possible time.
It's hard to determine the real situation. Ash, which is managed by someone who left Russia and has been declared a foreign agent. Belgorod journalist Nikita Pamyonov reports that the authorities decided to shut down about 300 elevators due to the blackout.
There have been 148 recorded cases of people getting stuck in elevator cabins. This is due to restoration work on the power system after a missile strike on the substation. To ensure the safety of residents and prevent equipment breakdowns, the authorities decided to temporarily shut down 371 elevators in 68 apartment buildings. It is not specified which buildings were affected by the shutdown.
It is also known that Governor Gladkov refused to deploy mobile heating stations even though they are supposedly ready. Local businesses came to the aid of freezing Belgorod residents. Meanwhile, those whose electricity was restored by repair crews are facing a different problem. It is extremely high voltage, which has caused appliances to burn out. Local authorities found a solution for this too. Since it's impossible to prove the cause of the breakdown, they are unable to help. The current blackout Belgorod residents are enduring amid Moscow's military aggression has exposed local government failure even with regional elections coming this September. Yet the Kremlin believes the blackout is unlikely to impact the careers of local politicians. Winners won't be the ones who work hardest, but those who can effectively mobilize the voters.